How did the Wolseley expedition and Northwest Rebellion affect the geopolitical landscape? To rephrase this question, it can be asked as, how did Louis Riel affect modern-day Canada with his rebellions?
The Wolseley expedition was an expedition authorized by the man himself, Sir Ronald MacDonald. I meant to say Sir John A. MacDonald. Same difference. Led by Garnet Wolseley, the expedition was meant to confront and, if necessary, subjugate the Red River Rebellion, which was the Métis people, led by French politician Louis Riel.
The Red River Rebellion had taken over Fort Garry in Winnipeg, Manitoba. The expedition took 3 months to arrive at Fort Garry on August 24th. The fort was retaken without any reported casualties on the Canadian side, removing Riel's provisional government and the threat of American expansion into Canada.
The Wolseley expedition had a few major impacts. First of all, the creation of Manitoba. Manitoba was created after the Manitoba Act, which allowed the Red River colonies to join Canada officially as a new province, taking a hefty chunk of what was once known as Rupert's Land. This act is, obviously, still very much in effect today. Unfortunately, Riel escaped and lived to also lead the Northwest Rebellion.
The Wolseley expedition was a sort of prelude to the Northwest Rebellion, the final and biggest military conflict involving these parties, as well as the greatest military conflict in Canada within the time period. There were many battles during the Northwest Rebellion, such as the battles of Duck Lake, Fish Creek, and Cut Knife, and more.
So, how did this war break out?
On March 26, 1885, roughly 170 Métis warriors, led by Gabriel Dumont, it's literally me, defeated 90 Northwest Mounted Police, led by the Superintendent
Leif Newry Fitzroy Crozier.
in the Battle of Duck Lake.
On March 30th, a party of Cree people raided Fort Battleford due to a lack of supplies. Their main food source, bison, were hunted to near extinction by the Canadians. They raided food and supplies from the abandoned houses and stores. However, those two transgressions were forgivable, as the citizens had evacuated, resulting in no casualties for the Canadians. However, the next one was not, and was the true catalyst to the conflicts. April 2nd, 1885. A Cree chief led a force to attack a small town, gathering all the white settlers into the church and killing a total of 9 people, taking 3 captive. Among the 9 killed was Thomas Quinn, the quote-unquote Indian agent, who was supposed to interact with the First Nations on the country's behalf, like a middleman of sorts.
Of course, this didn't go unpunished. The chief was hanged shortly after in vengeance. On April 15th, the Cree intercepted a police scouting party at Fort Pitt, killing one, wounding another, and taking several townsfolk hostage and destroying the fort. In layman's terms, this means that things just got real. As tensions increased, the government sent Major General Frederick Middleton, commander of the Canadian militia, to Winnipeg. The government also mobilized several units of cavalry, artillery, infantry to Winnipeg. Other militia units from other cities soon followed, and every major city in the east were embarking militiamen. Thousands of troops followed the initial soldiers sent.
Despite this, the indigenous peoples were fighting. On April 24th, 200 Métis people managed to defeat 900 government soldiers, a monumental achievement. This was able to temporarily slow Middleton's advance, but not decisive enough to win the war.
Just after the break of dawn on May the 2nd, Lieutenant Colonel William Otter's forces arrived on the east side of Cut Knife Creek. A Cree chief named Fine Day and his forces managed to repel Lieutenant Colonel William Otter in the Battle of Cut Knife, using superior guerrilla tactics, despite the Canadians bringing a Gatling gun and 2 cannons.
However, the indigenous victories were futile, and they had their last stand during the Battle of Toche from May 9th to the 12th on a prairie on the banks of the Saskatchewan River.
The Métis were greatly outnumbered and much lower in supplies than the militia. After 3 days of siege, they ran out of ammunition and were overrun by Middleton's men. Riel surrendered and was captured.
The war was won, but indigenous conflicts were far from over. The final battle was at Loon Lake, and the indigenous peoples were out of resources and supplies, leading to their ultimate surrender. On July the 2nd, the chiefs surrendered at Fort Carleton. Following the war, 2 chiefs were put in prison, and 8 were hanged for their crimes, resulting in the largest mass hanging in Canadian history. Louis Riel was put on trial too, found guilty of treason, and was hanged. Even in death, he was still, to put it simply, a pain in the butt. His death sparked more controversy between the baguette eaters and normal people. So, what are our results? The Canadian Pacific Railway was completed because of this war. It played a crucial factor in the victory of the Canadian government and received a lot of political support for its completion. Today, the railway is still making billions of dollars, reaching from one end of Canada to the other.
Despite losing the war, the Métis did get their requested land grants in 1887. Unfortunately for them, they would not get their happy ending though, as they resold it to farmers, not understanding the value of the land they received.
Also, as a consequence, the French language and Catholic religion had begun to dwindle in Saskatchewan and Manitoba due to Riel and his death.
Additionally, following another incident known as the Manitoba Schools Question, the Métis were increasingly being forced into poor and undesirable land, becoming today's Indigenous reserves. Finally, Riel's trial and the Prime Minister Macdonald's refusal to commute or lessen his sentence caused outrage in Quebec, as Riel was a croissant eater, causing rifts between French and English politicians, causing future incidents as well.
Hope you liked the video.